Cool. All right, Jason, wonderful to meet you. So thank you for taking a minute out.
Yes, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So let's get into your world here and your work. To begin with, I want to start with 5 years ago, this pandemic started. We were about a month into it. So many things changed, got rearranged. How much of living through that pandemic has influenced the way that you live life and do work now?
It completely changed my life. I mean, in every aspect. So I work from home. I got my 9 to 5 job during the pandemic actually.
Yeah.
So for me, it was actually I hate to say this, but it was kind of a positive thing. I worked from home. I spent, an exorbitant amount of time with my wife. I got to just hone in on, the more creative side of me that was kind of um buried under the corporate self, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it really like brought me out of my shell,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I've been in corporate America. That has a way of just numbing you to a lot of things. And you have to wake up. You have to get out of the rubble of that. We're like right now, my wife really wants to watch
Yeah.
The Office with me. And I'm like, it's not funny to me. I don't want to watch that anymore.
The
I live,
Office is a form of PTSD.
oh my God, I can't do it. I
Yeah,
got to get out.
that's really funny. I love that show, but I
Okay,
totally see why it can be like that. It's
totally.
just monotonous.
Yeah, for sure. So, the great thing about your story is, and I come from a very personal perspective here. My son is 20. He's been the autism spectrum his whole life.
Oh,
And he has, technically, biologically speaking, he has one long arm, one extra piece of genetic material on his 15th chromosome. But he's been in
huh.
speech therapy. And when he was young, I pulled a speech therapist aside and said, just tell me if he's going to talk. That's all I want to know. And he has, and now he will ask
Wow.
a billion questions, but he still has a really hard time with people understanding him. I have to help him enunciate all the time. He did sign language until he was 3 or 4. So I understand speech and how that whole world can affect you, but how the world can't understand you. There's a level of receptivity that people can find. And
Yep.
there's a level of benevolence in people's hearts too. I'm always warmed by humans and how good they can be because when they see Miles, he's hit this weird phase where he wants to shave his head and go as bald as he can. So it kind of illuminates a little bit of where he's at in life. But everybody's always so kind. So my question
Yeah.
to you is this: before we kind of peel back the layers, I want to know exactly what you do right now in 2025. And to do that, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's grade school kids, fifth graders. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
Yes. So I would say by day, I run a big music site, EDM.com. It's the nation's largest electronic dance site. And then by night, I'm an author writing children's stories for kids with speech issues.
So, are you a Moby fan?
Oh yeah, how can you not be?
That's right.
Moe's
That's
legit.
that's the answer. He has a podcast. Have you listened to it?
I haven't.
Oh, dude, you have to. He's like the first episode that I listened to was about the making of Play and how it was literally going to be his last album and how he was still to this day blown away that it blew up as much as it did. But you got to get into it. And all of those early days in New York when he was in warehouses doing being a DJ
Mm,
and how they gave him a shot and he was dirt poor. So yeah, you should definitely when I
I will.
because I love the electronic realm, like Ehrlich
Oh,
Schnatz and all those cats. I'm a huge fan of the electronic realm, so I
nice.
awesome for
I'm
sure.
glad we're meeting then,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I mean, it's like speech therapy and electronic music is such a weird nexus that no one really meets at except for me. So it's good to meet you.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it at its base element, music is a healer. No matter who you are as a human
Yes.
being on this planet, because it's tough to be a human and then add anything else that can be something that you need to figure out and work on. Music is such a healer.
Dude, yeah, I mean, to a degree that I can't even explain. Like, I DJ'd as well. I've done major clubs in LA. I've done some big festivals as well. And when I would hop on the mic, I wouldn't stutter at all.
Yeah.
It disappeared. So, I mean, it's like a therapy that it's ineffable.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I mean, and I have a jazz radio show, so I think about back in the day when Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie would take UN missions to war-torn regions of Africa and they would stop, the war would stop. I mean, are you kidding? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it speaks in volumes, no pun intended.
yeah, it's totally awesome. So let me ask you this. When you were a kid in fifth grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
In fifth grade, I wanted to be a baseball player, just like
Okay.
every other fifth grader.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was a diehard Phillies fan back in the day, and that was what I wanted. But quickly learned that I didn't have the skill. Um, so yeah, at that time, growing up with a stutter, you
Yeah.
you look for certain mediums where you can express yourself because words ain't it.
Yeah.
So I adopted writing from an early age.
Yeah.
And around that time, fifth, sixth, the seventh grade, I started to realize that I was actually very good at it.
Yeah.
So from there on out, I knew I wanted to do something with creative writing,
Yeah.
whether it be an author or journalist or something.
So what was your first book? What was the book that was the gateway for you that made you love reading or gave you this desire to write?
My favorite book for years, especially when I was a kid and when I was a voracious reader, was the BFG by Roald Dahl.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
read that book 100 times.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, so let me ask you this. As a music guy, what was the first live show you went to that blew you away?
So the first I got dragged to a festival in Miami called Ultra. It's one
Uh-huh.
one of the biggest EDM festivals in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who like Calvin Harris was at the time. My friends were just like, "You're coming." So I went and I got in and I had one of those moments like, oh, like it all just like just completely overtook me. I fell in love with all of it. The first DJ that I saw there that was really mind blowing that stuck with me was this guy Fetty Legrand.
Yeah, I've totally heard of
Fetty
him.
Legrand.
Yeah.
He's like an icon in the electronic world. So his set was like a watershed moment. I went home. I got my first DJ decks. I started like playing around with it, and then it was like off to the races.
So is Anon Tobin, is he technically in that realm?
I would call him electronic music. He's experimental, but he's
Okay.
definitely in that world. Yeah.
Because I love because he'd bring all those old LP sounds in. You know, he was just
Sampler. He is a master sampler.
yeah. And then
He's a beast.
and I may be in like old school. I think of Roy Scott and Groove Armada and
Yep.
bands like that, you know, that just Massive Attack.
Kraftwerk.
Yeah, Kraftwerk. Yeah, that whole realm. Um, so who's good now? Who's hot now? Who are some people that you're listening to? Because I'm always interested in the evolution. Because I'll get on iTunes and look at what's up, but what's going on? What are you digging these days?
I love Odessa.
Okay, I'm
They're
gonna.
one of my favorite acts.
Okay,
If you're into, they are big on sampling like soul and blues records from
yeah.
back in the day. So you would like them.
Okay.
I'd say my all-time favorite, and my wife says as well, is Skrillex.
Skrillex. My stepdaughter listens to Skrillex, and I know that, and Moby will reference Skrillex. But yeah, it's and that's
Yeah.
a fascinating world of the DJ electronica world, and because it's really an art form. I mean, there's really there's so much that goes into it, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, it gets us the genre itself and the art of DJing, they get stigmatized by
Yeah.
the detractors out there who are like, "Oh, they just hit play on a playlist." Like, no, it is so much more than that, and Skrillex is a prime example. Like what he does up there is it's like it's just it's mind blowing what he can do with some decks.
Well, and it's interesting too because people like Moby, they have this technical ability of like getting people to move and getting this music that's electronic. But then he can do something like God moving over the face of the waters, and
Yep.
those kinds of things. And all of these cats have that ability of getting acoustic and like layering all of these sounds and then putting strings behind it and having this huge wall of sound that makes you speechless.
Versatility, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, Skrillex, everyone thinks he's this dubstep artist and he
yeah,
just plays all this bebop music, but no, he makes everything. Like he's worked with the Beach Boys, with Corn,
yep,
with Incubus. Like he makes lo-fi, rock, ska. Like he's all over the map,
yeah.
and whatever he makes, it's just the cleanest, most layered, expansive stuff you'll ever hear.
I know Beastie Boys aren't, we're talking electronic, but when I think about those guys and what they did, when you see, like, I saw a clip of them on Letterman in the 90s. My God, dude, they were destroying that stage. I mean, it was just, I think
Oh,
they were
Beastie
playing,
Boys are nuts. Yeah.
yeah, they were playing like Sabotage and like totally like riffing off into these like abstracts and then coming back in and going out. And it was like, that was the thing about them. They were all so talented, almost jazz theorists in the way they thought about music.
For sure. I mean, arrangement wise,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, some people like Beastie Boys, like Moby, are just born different.
Yeah.
They're meant for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I was even thinking about I had a friend that was really into fish, and I've never really been into jam band kind of a
Me
things,
neither.
but he took me to it, and those guys are kind of jazz theorists too. And there was a level of them that had this acumen that was much deeper. So it's kind of like Rush. Rush is kind of the hero of the rock and roll world because they were so deeply entrenched in something that's still undefinable.
Agreed. I think Fish is a great example actually of like the of like a jazz fusion because
Yeah.
they're I know very like improvisational on
Yes.
stage,
Yeah.
which I think and you correct me if I'm wrong, but jazz that's like a cornerstone of
That's
jazz
it.
music.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, 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 for sure. So let me ask you this. In your life, who has been that hero, that inspirational force for you to do everything that you've done?
Can I say multiple? Because I mean
Oh,
it's
yeah.
my family.
Yeah.
I say this a lot. I had and still have an amazing support system that most kids just don't have. My parents supported me through everything. They never pressured me to like find a quote unquote cure to stutter. They always just wanted me to express myself and they got me help where they could. My brother, who's 6 years older, would beat up bullies,
Yeah.
like just like to a pulp.
Yeah.
And my twin sister would lash out at anyone in school who would like, you know, make fun of me. So
Yeah.
having that around me and having that level of support was massive. And I don't think I ever would have come out of my shell and felt any semblance of confidence if I didn't have them.
So if you could meet one musician, one person out there, I mean, it could be a writer, it could be a musician, a creative, an inspirational force. If there's one person you could meet and hang with and see how they roll, who would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't been asked that in a long time. Um, Dead or alive?
Yeah. We could do ghosts.
We can do ghosts. I would probably say Bob D Dylan.
I Man, I tried. I got because I'll get PR releases because his folk will kind of go into jazz artists and all of that. And I threw a request out a couple years ago. And as much as that would be awesome, it would be terrifying. I've seen him in interviews. He would be like Miles Davis because it's knives out
Oh,
with those guys. They are waiting to go for it.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, he's a legend. He knows it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say him. Uh, yeah, I don't know who I would say him. I mean, he's one of the best songwriters ever. So
And the
yeah,
experience and the influence that he's had. I saw him at, we used to have this thing called the Spirit Fest in Kansas City, and it was at our Liberty Memorial, big festival. And I saw him in the mid to late 90s, and it was during that phase where he just wasn't real dynamic. I mean, it was him, but it was just like you could tell he was tired. You could feel it. But I'm so glad that I got to catch him live, but he would be
that's so
fascinating.
cool.
There is that interview on 60 Minutes with oh, Ed. I can't remember his name. He was a big correspondent at the time. Have you seen that interview with him?
No,
Do Bob Dylan 60 Minutes, and it's fascinating
okay,
because he does
I
get
need to
into
know.
kind of a level of sparring with him in a friendly way, but he was just definitely not faint of heart with journalists. If you didn't come in and you weren't meaning what you were saying or you weren't learned up, he was going to go for it. But it was still revelatory.
Which
Yeah,
is as it should be,
yeah,
to
yeah,
be honest. I mean, as a journalist, you got to come in like hot and ready to impress.
yeah.
And by the way, I think I just one came to mind that I feel like an idiot for not saying. Avicii, if you remember him.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah,
Avicii is like the most legendary electronic dance music artist,
absolutely.
at least of my time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would be
Um,
fascinating.
oh, hold on, I think I lost you.
Oh,
Hang tight. My speaker just died.
yeah, it's all good.
Okay,
We good?
there we go.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so Avicii is like a savant where he wasn't classically trained with music and melody making, but he would sit down at a piano and just make the most beautiful, haunting melodies you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
And he redefined dance music in that way. And he mixed in bluegrass, folk, country, and he made it all danceable.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's just a- our community like misses him very much.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think he would be it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what is it ultimately with all of these different vocations and interests that you have? What ultimately gets you up every day to balance and to do all of these things and be the best you can be and also feed your own soul?
It's definitely helping kids. I mean, I wrote this book to help young kids with speech issues.
Yeah.
I don't even care about making money off of it. As if I know that it gets in their hands and it helps them, like I know that sounds very cliche and it sounds like a platitude, but it's the truth. I just
Yeah.
want to help these kids because it's the book that I never had as a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what gets me up every day, and I just can only hope it makes that kind of impact.
There was a guy that was in Austin, speaking of Austin, that was kind of a folk hero back in the 90s, or yeah, it was in the 90s. Daniel Johnston. Are you familiar with him?
The name rings a bell, actually.
He was kind of a folksy guy, but he did an album with a LA rocker by the name of Jason Faulkner, who was in Jellyfish.
Okay.
And my son, when he was trying to learn how to speak, there was a song that I played off an album called Fake Records of Rock and Roll. And Miles would sing it over and over and always wanted to hear it. And I finally got an interview with Jason Faulkner and got Daniel on the phone. I said, dude, thank you for allowing my son to sing. It's been hard for him to speak. So that you saying that, it's like when you have those seminal figures in your life that you can look up to and grab onto that will either make you speak or make you feel like you're not alone when you're trying to figure out what your voice is. It's huge. These kids need it.
Yeah, I mean, seminal figures. I think it all boils down to parents.
Right.
It's the parents. I mean, famous people are cool to look up to because they're famous, but at the end of the day, like they're not the ones with the tendrils who are actually affecting your everyday life. So, in terms of seminal figures, it's the parents and it's how they react every day in the household
Yep.
to those speech issues.
Totally. You're 100% right. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Of everything that you've done and accomplished up to this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
This, it's the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, wholeheartedly. I've done some cool stuff with my job. I've covered festivals in Fiji and like everywhere. But this is it. I mean, it's the most rewarding. I've spoken to so many kids who stutter and their parents, and I've spoken with doctors, and they all like they're not blowing smoke up my butt. Like they're telling me that it's really making a difference.
That's huge. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you had a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you could give that much younger version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give that young version of you?
I would say probably embracing your flaws is the most important thing. It can be hard because owning your struggles can kind of seem like a weakness.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
But that's like the first step to kind of reclaiming it,
yeah,
like reclaiming your voice. I found out after college, I mean, 23, 24, that if I hide behind it, it just makes me look like a timid, weak, kind of like ineffectual adult. So when I was doing job interviews and meeting friends, like all these social interactions, I found out eventually that if I just acknowledge it off the rip, and I say like, hey, just so a heads up, I have a stutter. It doesn't affect the way I communicate. It's just the way I am. I've been navigating it my whole life. I hope it's okay. Um, the person on the other end 9 times out of 10 will be like, oh, it's totally fine. Like, I
yeah,
actually respect that honesty. And th this goes back to what you said about a half hour ago about having realizing that a lot of people out there have empathy.
yeah,
Like with your son, most adults they do have empathy
absolutely.
towards people who are struggling with stuff like this.
Yeah.
The problem is that, you know, empathy only comes with being an adult and having that wisdom. And the bullying and the cruelty with kids, it comes from a place of ignorance, and they just don't have that wisdom yet.
And a part of that is what you say about parenting too. When you have that parenting at home and you weave those seeds of empathy in them,
Yep,
it helps so much. I mean, I
it's
think
everything.
yeah. I mean, I even think about that with the political lampoons that we're living through right now and the way that people are all of a sudden embracing this idea of being mean to each other and marginalizing groups. It's like, man, we can't do that as humans. We can't tell Rosa to go back to the back of the bus. We did too much up to this point to scrap that
Yep.
whole idea, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's the media and politics, they sow division. It's why they exist.
Yeah,
It's a bummer that all of us can't see through it
I
and
know. I know.
avoid the pitfalls that you just explained, but
Yeah.
it's the way it is.
It is. So at the end of the day, Jason, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, everyone that gets your book, everyone that knows you in the music world, everyone has a perception, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Dude, I'm just a kind guy who likes to write about music and help artists and help kids. I have no interest in being like a figure, like a famous. I just want to just a kind shoulder that you can lean on if you ever need some help.
I dig it. So I got to
Yeah.
know. I asked about the first show, but what's the best show live show you've ever seen?
The best live show I've ever seen was 2 years ago, 2023. Skrillex. I saw him at Red Rocks in
Wow.
Colorado.
Oh my God.
So he did his first ever 5 hour set there.
Wow.
So it was like a career retrospective of him at Red Rocks,
Oh
which
my
I'm sure
God.
you're aware is like one of the most stunning venues in the world.
That's crazy, dude. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, just the energy he brought was just visceral. Like you become a different version of yourself in an atmosphere like that.
that guy had to be on an adrenaline rush for days after
Oof,
that.
I can't even imagine. I mean, it was crazy. He started out like we walked in and he was in the middle of the venue, like in the seats, and everyone around him was watching him. It was like a 360 thing.
Wow.
So it was like very intimate. And then after about an hour, he hopped on stage, and that's when everything really started to
Oh,
hit.
that's cool, man. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, when you can do that. So, the most important stuff here, if anyone wants to get into your electronic database, buy the book, learn more about you, any questions or reaching out, where do they go?
So you can find the book on Amazon. It's called Tongue Tied. So it's easy to find there. And then if you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's Heff, and an underscore that THAT Heff that.
Excellent. Man, what a great interview. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything. This has been great.
Dude, thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.